yo? Welcome back to the channel, y'all. This is your boy Kenny coming at you today, bringing you another spoiler-filled review, and we're not going to beat around the bush on this one, y'all. I'm talking about Wakanda Forever. That's right. Black Panther Wakanda Forever just hit theaters this past weekend of November 11th, 2022. It's been damn near 5 years in the making, waiting for this sequel, man. A lot of stuff has happened ever since the release of the OG Black Panther. As you MCU stans and as you Marvel fans, comic book movie fans, fandom fans all around the world know. And before we go any further, man, we appreciate each and every one of you watchers/listeners for tuning in today for this spoiler-filled review. Make sure you click all the subscribe buttons, downloads, all that stuff. You know it helps the show out immensely. And before we get into a lot of the meat and potatoes of this review, a lot of the big stuff for this particular sequel of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, just to give you all a little bit of background for those that are just joining the channel or have been with us for a minute and haven't heard my previous opinions personally about the Black Panther films. But just so y'all know, I am a huge fan of the original Black Panther film from 2018, man. I've always been a fan of the character, you know what I'm saying? Wakanda Forever, baby. Always been a fan of the character, you know what I'm saying? Didn't read the comics growing up, just being honest, just from cartoons and some and like a few one-shot comics here and there, really. I didn't read like full-on storylines or anything like that and things of that nature. And Black Panther wasn't necessarily a character that had like a lot of mainstream exposure and all that kind of stuff. And he really got the first big thing I kind of saw in the somewhat mainstream realm was the animated Black Panther series they did years ago in the late 2000s or the early 2010s, way before this movie was going to come out. And they even wanted to make a Wesley Snipes led Black Panther film in the 90s. So we could have been in a whole new timeline, dog. We could have had a whole series of Black Panther films. This could have been the remake, you know what I mean? A la Blade style, the way that's kind of going on in the MCU today. But always been a huge fan of the character. And when they introduced Chadwick Boseman on stage back in 2016, if I'm not mistaken, I was in college at the time, going online, reading the articles about the pop culture news of the day, and saw they had the big Marvel Phase 3 announcement panel where they brought out, Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr. to introduce Captain America Civil War and the entire Phase 3 slate, which included the premiere of Black Panther.
Black Panther himself, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chadwick Boseman.
And of the late great and amazingly talented Chadwick Boseman's casting of T'Challa, aka Black Panther, man. That was the whole big introduction right there. And I was like, okay, cool. This is the guy who's going to get to play Black Panther. How dope is that? I'm going to go find out what this guy's done. And at the time, he hadn't done some of the string of great movies he did after the fact. But at the time, he had already did, what was that? So from that moment on, I had to find out what work had this actor done before. Let me see if I can get a little bit of taste of what he's bringing, what the flavor he is bringing to this role. And at the time, he had only did Get On Up, the James Brown biopic, and also did the Jackie Robinson biopic, 42, back in 2013. So he did both of those films and got quite a bit of praise for those. Some of the older heads didn't really like Get On Up for the inaccuracies and whatnot, but that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, that's really the only big movies he had did up until that point. He hadn't did Thurgood Marshall, 21 Bridges, and all these other things yet. So that's all we know. That's all we knew of him at the time. So I went and watched both of those movies, and he was phenomenal in both of them. And I was like, I love this guy. I think this guy's going to bring something special to this role. Let's just hope they write something good and they don't fuck this up, right? But the MCU had been on a pretty good run. There's only really 2 to 3 movies that people were kind of in the middle on or didn't like. So the MCU was kind of in its heyday at the time, in a sense. And yeah, and the rest was history. He came in, premiered, blew it up, and then he went on to do Infinity War, Endgame, and everything like that. But unfortunately, he had a battle with cancer that he kept secret from all the fans, all the people behind the scenes at the Marvel Studios, and everything like that. Ryan Coogler, everybody, nobody knew of his diagnosis, and unfortunately, he didn't quite make it. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to actually step into the mantle of Black Panther once again. And he passed away on August 28th of 2020, right there, smack dab dead in the pandemic. And I remember at the time, there was a lot of speculation that he had some bad health issues going on because he did a video where he recorded himself talking about some stuff going on. I think it might have been COVID related. I don't quite remember, to be honest with y'all. But he had a video on social media talking about some stuff, and he looked very sickly, like very thin and not quite like himself, because he got pretty in shape to be the Black Panther. So, we knew that something was up, and we found out a few months later that he had passed on, man. And it was terrible, man. And to this day, I miss him. We all miss him out there, and And the one thing I will say with this movie, and not in a negative regard, and nothing against the people that were behind the scenes on this film, cast and crew, everybody, man, nothing against them, but you definitely felt the absence of his presence in Wakanda Forever, and there's always going to be a hole in Wakanda with Chadwick Boseman not being there, and without his and in the MCU. And in general, and it was such a cultural impact that the first Black Panther had, not just because of the film itself, but because of Chadwick Boseman and the way that he went out to these fans that had the same illnesses and similar things as him, and went out and visited those people, and went out and really touched the hearts and souls of a lot of us Marvel fans out there in the world. Chadwick Boseman was a big, huge part of that cultural movement and of the success of Black Panther. So
this welcome is one of the most amazing things I've ever experienced.
Definitely love the way that they paid respect to him in this film of Wakanda Forever, but also is just going to be sorely missed for years to come. And just a side note, just as a fun fact, he actually has the same birthday as me. He was born November 29th as well, but in 76, and I was born 94, so he was about 18 years older than me. But yeah, I always just thought that was pretty crazy, man. Like, we were born the same day, just, almost 20 years apart and everything. But yeah, man, he missed the hell out of that guy and was such a fan of his, and just couldn't wait to see the bright future he had ahead. Every movie he did was just good, man. So it's a bummer to see him gone. And much love to the Boseman family and everything like that. I know his wife and everyone else involved is still probably mourning the loss. So much love to each one of you out there. And just wanted to give you all a little bit of background on our boy Chadwick Boseman, myself, my fandom going into this. So had a lot of hype and anticipation going into this Wakanda Forever review, but I gotta say, man, after finally getting a chance to see it with my boys the other day and getting a chance to really take it all in, this film is incredible. This film is fucking incredible, man. I absolutely loved it. It isn't without its flaws, but I really enjoyed this film. This was a very serviceable sequel. You can feel the passion, the love, and the respect they have for Chadwick Boseman, his legacy, and the overall character of T'Challa and what he means in the overall canon of the MCU and in the overall world that we all live in, right? So I love the way that he tied Chadwick Boseman's death into the film, and not a way of capitalizing on his death and on the tragedy and all of that tragic loss, but using it as a catalyst to tell a compelling story about grief, about loss, and about family, and about culture, and about all those different things, and all the socio-political elements and themes in this movie as well, played so well without hitting you over the head, without preaching to you, and just giving you my overall thoughts on the film, man. It's just great stuff. All the side characters and supporting characters from the previous film have been upgraded and got the chance to be the leads of this film, and Ryan Coogler definitely crafted the story and had the pivot and used Shuri as the new Black Panther coming up in this thing. And if you ain't known from the thumbnail alone, spoiler alert, y'all, this is a big ass spoiler-filled review, so we're getting into all the details. But you can kind of really see the way that Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa could have been at the forefront of this film, and the story probably wouldn't have been way different, you know what I'm saying? But they definitely had to switch up some things and maneuver it around in order to make it make sense, and for Shuri to kind of get the mantle and pass that on. And the whole way that they handled the fact of, should there even be a Black Panther at this point? Shuri being very reluctant to want to take on the mantle, and the whole back and forth between her and Queen Ramonda, of course, Angela Bassett's character, is just so damn compelling, so damn well done, and their dynamic as a mother and daughter is even stronger in this film, and everything going on there, and the whole conflict between the Talokans, the Talakians, and Namor's people from under the ocean there. And we ain't talking Atlantis, you know what I mean? We got a lot more Mayan flavor going into it there, and I absolutely loved the introduction of Namor, as he says in the film, but Namor the Submariner.
My ancestors would often say, only the most broken people can be great leaders. My enemies call me Namor.
did a damn good job. But we're going to get into all the individual characters as well, and I'm going to kind of get into what my thoughts were on them and my favorite moments, things I liked, didn't like, so what have you. So I'm going to get into all the characters specifically, but just getting into this general thoughts here. Really loved a lot of the stuff going on with Namor and the whole conflict between the Talakians and the Wakandans and everything going on there, and the whole thing that plays out where they're trying, the Americans are sending in people to try to get the resources that Wakanda has of vibranium, of course, and everyone wants a piece of that pie and doesn't think the Wakandans have the right to reserve that for themselves and to keep that resource from the public at large of all these different countries around the world. And you can see in that UN meeting with Queen Ramonda, you know what I'm saying, where she's like, yo, we ain't giving you shit. And the reason why we are where we are today and we haven't been fucked over and pillaged is because we haven't given you motherfuckers the right to use it. And she ain't singling out any specific people. She's not singling out Americans. Just anybody from any other country around the world would want to use these resources for not just negative stuff, obviously. I'm sure there's people that would use it for positives, you know? Because even Riri Williams, who's introduced in this film, had the intentions of using it for good purposes, but it all got twisted into something bad, into something that isn't positive, into something that's just about getting resources, getting rich, and getting and getting that stuff and using it for their own personal gain and things of that nature, no matter the cost and all this stuff. And the way that they weaved all these themes together was just so well done and so organic to the story that was set up in the previous film and carries all the themes and all the character arcs from the previous films of where all the Wakandan characters have appeared before: Infinity War, Endgame, and obviously the first Black Panther. It all plays such a great role in this film, and it all makes so much sense. In the whole conflict with the Americans thinking the Wakandans are doing what the Talokians are doing in the sense of they're trying to prevent them from using their technology created by Riri Williams to get their resources of the heart-shaped herb that does give us that does give people what we know as vibranium under the ocean, because unbeknownst to the Wakandans the whole time, there has been vibranium in other parts of the ocean that the Talakians, for example, have been using for their underwater empire for all these years. And, you know, Namor going way back to the 16th century and all that stuff. We're going to get more into that in a moment. But I just loved all the way that they did so much great world building and building out the lore and really pushing the story forward for all these characters. And introducing the Talakians in a very creepy, in a very organic, and in a very real and impactful way was so well done. And I love the way that they stepped away from the typical Atlantis stuff. I know a lot of the comic book fans that love Namor probably miss that element, but I think that definitely plays a huge role here and makes a lot of sense of the way they change it up, because you can't copy what James Wan and Jason Momoa are doing. You know, you got to switch it up and find something different. But I also think it gets to the core of Latin America and of Latin culture to use the Mayans. And I think it is a really cool way of doing what they did with the Wakandans and African culture in real life, and kind of blending real life and the fictional things and bringing it together to really represent a culture in a very organic, but also in a very cool and epic way. They did the same thing here. And I really loved all of that. And as I mentioned before, this film does have a few issues in there. It is a little too long, I would say. I think they could have trimmed down the pacing a bit. But overall, love this film, and there's so much it has to offer. And it really is such a fantastic close to Phase 4, and just ties into the theme of grief and that post-Endgame period of grieving the loss of those that came before and we've lost, and trying to find a way to move forward. And me personally, having dealing with that for the last 3 years, since about 2019, 2018, you know, losing friends, losing my grandfather, and things of that nature, it's been really rough, you know, and I can really connect to that. So I definitely really appreciated that with this film, and how they took their time to tell a very compelling and emotional storyline without trying to capitalize on something in a negative way, but also not preaching to the audience. I absolutely love that. But now we're going to move into the character portion, where we get into all the positives and negatives, highlights in the character arcs, and all that stuff with each of the individual characters. And we're gonna start off with some of the new additions here with the Talakians and Namor. And let me say here, one of the best villains introduced in a long time, man. The Black Panther series just seems to have a great tradition of having these great antagonists and villains for our main heroes to be going up against, because I love the now let me pull up his name here, because I want to make sure to give him his credit, and I'm probably gonna butcher it, so forgive me, y'all. Forgive me, okay? I'm probably gonna butcher this name, but I'm gonna give it my best. Tenoch Huerta. Now, I know I probably did Huerta. Okay, I'm trying to work it out in real time. But Tenoch Huerta did such a phenomenal job of bringing Namor to life and really playing into some of those asshole tendencies that the character has always been written as in the comics. And I get he was a little bit maybe kind of nicer in a certain sense in the interactions he had with Shuri and some of the Wakandans, but when you really saw the assholeness come out is when he really went at it, when he, like, we'll get into more Queen Ramonda in a minute, but when he went to go take her out, no fucks given. You know what I'm saying? And the whole interaction he had with her on the beach when he's staring her down like, yo, if you tell anybody about our existence, if you do anything to expose my people, we will come over here and fuck y'all up and take you out. Don't fuck with us, yo. Fuck around and find out. That was literally like, Namor is one of the most fuck around and find out characters since Killmonger and Thanos easily. Like, you really don't want to fuck with this guy. And I love the way that they just made him so comic book accurate to the design and everything for the most part. Even having the wings on his ankles, you know what I mean? Like, and the way that they executed that was so badass because the very first time you see him when he's floating up out of the water, kind of like really see him up close, and you see him floating towards Angela Bassett and Queen Ramonda and Shuri over there when they're on the shore, and he's all telling him about his big thing of, yo, bring me the American scientist who's making this technology that's fucking with the fucking vibranium that my people have the God-given right to. You better bring us the scientist, and we're coming after your ass. Like, when he first came up with the floaty, with the flying wings on his ankles and whatnot, it was a little bit jarring, I ain't gonna lie. But overall, throughout the rest of the film, when you really see it in action, you actually do get used to it, and or at least I did, and it was really dope and effective when he was fighting. He'd be moving like super fucking fast, like it's like a fight out of Dragon Ball Z or something. Like, it's fucking dope, dude. Like, he's going up and taking out helicopters and spinning it all around. That very introduction sequence to the Talakians and everything when they're attacking that military ship or whatever, where they're trying to drill and get to that vibranium, man. Like, he goes in and just cleans house. And I love the way that the Talakians in general have this very creepy, otherworldly feeling to them. Like, even the whole siren thing that they used, where they use like this like verbal hypnosis to like make people essentially like jump in an abandoned ship and commit suicide, almost, in a sense, you know what I mean? It's fucking crazy, dude. Like, they could just hypnotize people just by doing that, and there's this whole like horror element to their introduction scene that I thought was just really, really cool, man. I really like the Talakians, everything from the design to the way that the actors portrayed the characters, the way they were written and everything. They just really seem very intimidating, very menacing, but you can also see the other side of the Talakians and the more somber, the more emotional, the softer side to them at times. So I definitely love the way that they fleshed them out and make them seem like a real culture of people, a real like a real country and a real like group of people that exist and live together and whatever. And the whole design of Talokan, so I think you would say Talakians, but yeah, the whole design of Talokan was so fucking cool, man. And I gotta say, looks cooler than the Atlantis shit in the Aquaman movie. I gotta be real, I did dig that movie a lot, but this looked a lot cooler, and it definitely just had the same awe and wonder of the first time you saw Wakanda in the original Black Panther film. So fucking awesome, man. I really love the way they did that, and just a big testament to the just the overall vision of Ryan Coogler, the director. Man, this guy just knocks it out of the park every fucking time. One of the top tier directors working today, man. Gotta say that for sure. But yeah, getting back to Namor specifically, I just loved all the action and fight scenes with him and the whole motivation of why he was doing what he was doing, in the sense of wanting to make the people on the surface world, us, pay for all the things they've done, all the colonizing and all the different shit that's been going on and all that. While I did think there was a little bit of a flaw with the logic of why he was doing what he was doing, it did have some kind of relevance to where you can kind of connect to it and kind of understand why he's doing it and whatnot. But I did think there's a little bit of a logic gap there. But overall, really dug what he was going for, and him wanting to make an alliance or go against Wakanda. It's like, if you're not my friend, you're my enemy. So you better choose your decision wisely. And I love the way that he doesn't have to raise his voice and yell a lot. He had one scene where he was giving a speech where he kind of yelled a little bit. But for the most part, he was very like quiet, very understated, and very intimidating in his performance. So Tenoch Huerta, you did a great job. Namor, the Submariner, man, one of the coolest villains introduced in a long time in the MCU. And also, I love the way that they straight up did the mutant name drop, where he's like, yeah, 16th century, I was born back then. Mother, all the stuff, and the whole backstory of how the kind of like the local doctor in their tribe gave everybody like this drink or this elixir that came from the heart-shaped herb that creates vibranium, as we all know, and they drank this stuff, which ended up turning their skin blue. and they all had to start living under the ocean. So that's the whole backstory for the Talakians, and that was really hella interesting in and of itself. And his mother was pregnant with him at the time when she took this medicine, because they all started getting the smallpox from the conquistadorian colonizers that came to that area of South America at the time back in the day. So really pulling on a lot of real world history there, and I love that. And the whole backstory with the Talakians, getting that whole thing going, and that in and of itself creating Namor, the very first mutant, straight up comic book accurate stuff. So now we got 2 confirmed mutants in the MCU, technically 3, but you got my boy Namor right here, or Namor, as he likes to pronounce it in the film. And you also have Kamala Khan, which they name dropped in the finale episode of Miss Marvel. And if I'm not mistaken, technically, in WandaVision, Wanda's kids of Billy and, was it Billy and Max? Whatever, but you know what I'm saying. Those 2 kids are technically the firstborn mutants, if you want to say that. But really, if you look at it, because I just did a rewatch of WandaVision recently, you could say Wanda Maximoff herself is one of the first mutants, along with her brother Pietro. But she is at least the Scarlet Witch, and as in that in and of itself, she seems like she's definitely a mutant in a way too. So you got 2, possibly 3 confirmed mutants in the MCU. So that's pretty dope, man. But I love that whole name drop right there. And getting into Shuri, she was fucking awesome as well. And I gotta say, dude, Letitia Wright did such a phenomenal job of carrying on the role and taking on the mantle of Black Panther, not just inside the film, but outside of the film as an actress, as a performer. Having to step into Chadwick Boseman's shoes, which are huge shoes to fill, is no easy task to ask of any performer at all. And I think she did such a great job of doing so and really did it justice, you know what I'm saying? And brought her own shades and her own flavor to it, in the way that she was dealing with the grief and couldn't really quite face what had happened to her brother, and the fact that she failed and couldn't help him and couldn't save him really ate her up inside. And that whole character arc that she was going throughout this film, to me, was so fucking relatable, man. I really felt her pain. I've been where she's been, and I'm still processing that stuff even myself to this day. And that just instantly made me connect with Shuri even more than I did in the previous film. I always enjoyed her character. I always thought she was fun. I always felt the love and in the dynamic and the relationship there with her and T'Challa. In the previous film, you always felt that heartbeat of the film right there. And the dynamic her and Chadwick Boseman had as performers was so awesome. And the way that she brought all the pain and all the triumph and all of that into this film was just so well done, dude. And this is some of her best acting, if not the best acting she's ever done in her career, man. And in the way that Shuri uses her scientific knowledge and her wit to win the day and to beat Namor in the final fight of the film is so fucking awesome, man. And I just loved everything that she was going through, from pretty much just being skeptical about even the ancestral plane. And we all know it as fans that have watched the movie, it all exists and it's all real. All the mysticism and all that stuff in their culture with Bast and everything like that is legitimate. It does exist. But she's at the point where she starts to become cynical and vengeful and doesn't want to believe in that, and thinks that it's time for science to lead the future instead of the heart-shaped herb. Maybe there shouldn't be a Black Panther. I don't want the mantle. Like, I want to move into a different direction, because that system seems to have broken down for us, but it also brings up all the pain I feel inside. So that whole character arc with Shuri was just so fucking well done, man. I have zero complaints with her character. I thought she was great, and I'm really excited to see where she goes from here, because I guess she technically is going to be carrying on the mantle, but we're going to have someone else kind of on the throne, kind of ruling over things, from the way I took the ending sequence with M'Baku going to challenge people the way that they did in the challenge in the first film. So it looks like him, more than likely, will become king of Wakanda, but Shuri's going to be off in Haiti doing her thing, kicking it with Nakia. And then eventually, when you need her, she will come to protect Wakanda and will do her thing. So it looks like she's going to be a little bit going back and forth, so to speak. But loved everything with Shuri. The new Black Panther design for her costume is so awesome, so well done. And I really dug how it does give you the same vibe and feeling of Chadwick Boseman's, but it gives it that Shuri flair and that flavor that you want. So you want it to stand on its own, and I think it definitely does. So awesome stuff. I really love Shuri's new design, new costume, everything like that. And the way that her character leaves off is such a beautiful way. And getting to meet T'Challa's son, T'Challa Jr., you know what I mean, was so awesome. In the way that she gets revealed that information from Nakia at the end of the film, Lupita Nyong'o's character, for the uninitiated, and gets to meet her nephew, you know, and get some closure in a certain sense, and get to have a piece of Chadwick Boseman, or sorry, My bad. Didn't mean to mix it up there. But get a little piece of her brother T'Challa living in her nephew, and someone that can potentially take on the mantle and continue the nobleness and continue the righteousness that T'Challa had as a man and as a person and as a figure and as a protector and leader of Wakanda. So it's really awesome to see that. I love that whole development in the mid-credits scene. And we're going to get more into Nakia in a bit, but I just wanted to highlight that first and foremost, man. And getting into the most powerhouse performance of this film, and y'all have probably heard it mentioned already several times if you're keeping up with all these reviews and whatnot, but Queen Ramonda, played by the amazingly talented legend herself, Angela Bassett. My God, yo. Give this woman an Oscar nomination immediately. She was phenomenal in this fucking movie, man. Her performance is so tragic, is so dramatic, is so heartfelt, and so well done, and so powerful. You feel everything this woman says in this movie. Every word that comes out of her mouth, you believe it. Everything she does, you believe it. And you can feel what her character is feeling. And the way that she took center stage in this film and was really carrying it along with Letitia Wright's character of Shuri, which is so well done, and it really shows you the powerhouse talent that Angela Bassett has always had ever since things of like, you know, What's Love Got to Do with It and everything like that going back 25, 30 some years ago. You really can see the talent that has never left that woman's soul, man. And she brings so much soul to this performance, and you can feel it, man. And it's really awesome, dude. Like, I really loved her performance in this film and her role. And I teared up, man, when Namor came up and took her out and drowned her, essentially, and almost killed off Riri in the process when he came to attack Wakanda after they kind of spilled the beans about the Talakans. About kind of spilling the beans about them being out there and whatnot. Namor was not fucking happy about that and ended up taking out Queen Ramonda herself, man. And it was a terribly sad moment, man. And me and the boys teared up in the theater, and man, it was terrible, man. It was so tragic, and just, man, Angela Bassett was just so amazing in this film. And excuse me. And another thing I wanted to highlight in this was the moment where she essentially demoted Okoye from being general of this of the Dora Milaje and everything, because Shuri got kidnapped and she had no clue whether she was alive or dead or anything. All the losses and all the L's they've been taking lately ever since the death of T'Challa, she kind of puts a lot of that responsibility onto her shoulders, which in a certain sense does make a lot of sense logically. So, and I love the way that Okoye doesn't try to argue with her too much and kind of just takes it on the chin, kind of understands where she kind of went wrong. And also, if she would have listened to Shuri and embraced more of the technological advances she was trying to give to the Dora Milaje to give Wakanda more of an advantage against their potential enemies and potential threats that could come down the pipeline now that America and all the places around the world, or the whole world really, is aware of their existence and wants what they have. She really wanted to use that technology to improve the Dora Milaje and was trying to work with Okoye, Shuri that is, to try to make that happen. But Okoye was being very, very stubborn and set in her ways like she was in the previous film when she helped protect Killmonger and co-signed his ascent to the throne. So I love the way that whole thing comes back around in this film, and you really get to see the character grow of Okoye and really see how she does get to learn something and go through something as well, and really has to learn to be able to progress and move forward and keep a little bit more of an open mind about what things are and trying to hold on to those traditions where it makes the most sense, but also has to know that you got to grow and evolve with the times and move with the future. Like T'Challa had with all his ancestors in the previous film when he went to the ancestral plane and was like, all of you are wrong. Like, you're all fucking up. Like, you should have been helping the world out and extending that olive branch. You know what I mean? Like, you're not right to be cowards and want to sit back and let everyone suffer and try to preserve everything you got, you know? We have the advantage. Let's use it wisely. So I love the way that kind of comes back around with Shuri talking to Okoye about certain things. So I love how a lot of the themes and the thematic elements of this film definitely ties into the previous film, not in a way where you must go back and watch it, but if you do, you have so much more context going into this, and you're really already automatically fully invested in their journey and want to see where Wakanda and where all these characters go from here. So love the way that they tied all that together and really dug Okoye's performance. I mean, sorry about that. Really dug her role in this movie, man, and thought that Okoye was really awesome in this movie. Had some of the best fight scenes, like the one with her versus the Talakian kind of general guy on the bridge there, and all that other stuff, and the whole chase sequence that led to that moment where she sticks the spear through the car and everything like that. And starts driving around and whatever, looks like I think that was like a Dodge Challenger or something like that. I'm not sure, But yeah, that was really, really awesome stuff. And I think Denai Guerrera did such a great job of performing Okoye once again, but bringing a lot of that pain and a lot of that grief along with her performance as well in those more somber moments, but always brought the humor and the badassery we know Okoye to have. So really loved her performance as well. Can't say enough great things about her. And now getting into my girl, Lupita Nyong'o's character of Nakia. I believe I'm saying that right. Let me know in the comments if I'm saying it wrong. All love here. Really loved her role and her reintroduction into the story and into the MCU here with this film, where at the end of Infinity War, when everyone got dusted, including our boy T'Challa, she couldn't really handle it and had to go off and deal with it on her own, and wanted to get away from the throne and all the big political challenges and political conflicts going on in Wakanda. She just wanted to take a step back and get away from it, so she went to Haiti and became a teacher down there. So she was really doing that and working in one of the outreach programs that Wakanda had set up once they opened their borders, or opened up their knowledge and a little bit to the rest of the world, as you saw at the end of the first film with T'Challa and whatnot at the UN meeting. And the way that carries forward in this film, because I remember like an hour or so into the movie, I was like, where's Nakia? Like, where's my girl Lupita Nyong'o? What's going on here? And the way they reintroduce her, where Angela Bassett's character of Queen Ramonda has to go talk to her to try to get her to infiltrate Talokan, so that way they can go and rescue Shuri and Riri Williams, aka the American scientist, as they say, the child, so that way they can get them away from Namor and try to end this conflict before it gets any crazier. And she's very hesitant to do so at first. And it was so crazy too, because like I mentioned earlier, just a little while ago, she left Wakanda at the end of Infinity War before Endgame even took place, and they brought T'Challa back and everything. And then she eventually kind of rekindled her relationship with T'Challa once again, and they ended up having their son in the years between the end of Endgame, which was 2023, because it had been 5 years, because Infinity War took place in real time in 2018, and then at the in the beginning of Endgame, as all y'all know, we had a time jump forward into 2023, and since then in Phase 4 we've jumped forward about 2 to 3 years now. So in the present of Wakanda Forever, it's 2026. I believe it's 2026 now in the current timeline of the MCU. So Nakia has been out of Wakanda for like 5, 6, 7 years, you know what I mean? And had her son there with her and renamed him in a Haitian name to keep him low key in secret. And this isn't revealed obviously to the post-credit scene, but just wanted to kind of wrap all that together here just to keep it a little more cohesive so I'm not jumping around as much. And Queen Ramonda was actually going to even mention that to Shuri earlier in the film, and she's like, hey, there's something about your brother I needed to tell you, but they got interrupted by the incoming attack of Talokan coming into Wakanda in the first one, when they flooded the hell out of the city, that was a crazy moment in and of itself right there. But yeah, man, and just the reintroduction of Nakia in this film was awesome, and getting to see her infiltrate Talokan, and the way that she tracked down these different people in South America and found out all this information, and was able to use her skills and her linguistic skills, and being able to speak all these different languages, to be able to use the Mayan language and use the original Mayan language, used to be able to speak Spanish and everything, to be able to get all the information she needed in a very, very, espionage kind of way, which was really dope and gave me a lot of Andor vibes as well with this one. And she was able to track down Shuri's location with the beads and everything like that. I just love that whole element of her just being a spy. And I would actually be super down for like a Nakia spin-off, like that TV specials they've been doing on the Disney Plus lately. I would love like an hour-long special, or like a 4, 5, 6 episode like mini series of Nakia going on like some big like globe-trotting kind of like spy adventure, you know what I mean? I just think that'd be really awesome. But anyways, getting off the sidetracks there. And I just loved her role in this film, and why she isn't necessarily on screen all the time. And I do think they definitely could have used a little more Lupita Nyong'o in this film and put Nakia a little more in the forefront. I did enjoy her role a lot and thought she played in where it made a lot of logical sense to the story, and they weren't necessarily trying to go out of their way to bring her in just to bring her in, but they brought her in a sense that really played with went along with the themes of the film very well, and plays into the story and the overall character development, and the character arc of everyone in the film is just so awesome. And getting to see her kind of reconnect with her people, and getting to kind of have everyone embrace each other once again, and kind of bring her in with open arms was really awesome. And getting to see all the good that she was doing in Haiti and stuff really fit with her character. So really loved everything with Nakia, man. Lupita Nyong'o killing it once again in this film. It was great stuff, man. I really, really loved her. And then getting into some of the last few characters here before we get into some of my mixed negative elements and some of my favorite overall moments in the film and stuff like that. The introduction of the big character of Ironheart, aka Riri Williams, played by Dominique Thorne. Man, she was a lot of fun in this movie. I really, really enjoyed her quite a bit. I do think they could have maybe just trimmed down her screen time a little bit, just to kind of give some of these other characters like Nakia and M'Baku, which we'll get into in a moment, a little more time to breathe in the film and a little more of a little bit more time to shine and stuff like that. But I will say Dominique Thorne was a lot of fun in this film, and I wasn't really as familiar with her work, but now looking at her through her IMDb a little bit, I realized she was in Judas and the Black Messiah, which was that one movie about the Black Panthers that starred Lakeith Stanfield and Daniel Kaluuya. Y'all know him, Get Out, Black Panther, of course. And she played, I can't remember who she played in that film, but I do remember seeing it. Came out last year, and I didn't see If Beale Street Could Talk, but I believe she's one of the co-leads of that film. Oh, no, she's not, but she's just in it. Never mind. My mistake. But anyway, she's been doing some of that stuff, so she's been making her name out there in Hollywood and whatnot. But I really enjoyed her character for the most part, and the way that they tied her into the story by making her the American scientist that developed the technology that they used to try to drill the vibranium out of the ocean there, I thought was really, really smart storytelling and some really good filmmaking going on there. And she had such a great chemistry with Letitia Wright's character in the film, and I really love their dynamic, and I'd be down to see them team up and do some stuff in the future as well. Really, really enjoyed her performance, man. And she's just 25 years old, me looking at her information right here, so she got a bright future ahead of her, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing the Ironheart series much more than I was before, because we hadn't really been introduced to the character. I've never read the actual Ironheart comics. So it was really cool getting to see them introduce that character, and the way they did it was so logical. It really made a lot of sense with the film. I just thought that she had so much screen time at times that I thought that it kind of took away from some of the established characters we didn't get to see as much. And I think they were, MCU stuff, they got to set up the next adventure, the next big thing going down. And sometimes I do think that could be at a little bit of a detriment to the overall story or certain characters or certain things going on. But not a huge negative, but something a little bit more mixed for me, because I enjoyed her a lot. I thought she was really funny, really charming, and just felt like a young woman from the area of Boston or Detroit, where she was from or whatever. Like, I thought she just really had a great dynamic and chemistry on screen with everyone she shared scenes with. So I think Dominique Thorne has a very bright future ahead, not just in the MCU, but outside of that, and as a performer and as an actress and as somebody out there doing her thing. I think she has a bright future ahead, and I can't wait to see what else she does, man. And can't wait to see what her series is going to ultimately end up being about. And I wonder if they're going to use any Tony Stark connection whatsoever with this thing. And one other small little nitpick too, I did think her being able to fly around in the suit made sense, because if she was able to make the technology, and since we've advanced since 2008's Iron Man, because it's now 2025, 2026 in the MCU, it's been literally almost 20 years since Tony Stark made his original Mark I suit. It made sense that somebody with equal, if not more intelligence, could create something more advanced a little bit in their Mark I than Tony could at the time. And it would make sense that she would be able to fly around in it and wouldn't be as in danger, because we're used to seeing Iron Man flying around. We're used to seeing aliens and zombies and all this weird shit at this point in the MCU. So it wouldn't be so weird for her to be flying around in the sky and people to be having sightings of it. And there's even a YouTube channel, as she says, in the MCU that's dedicated to sightings of her in the suit. I thought that was actually a really cool little small world building detail. But I think her being able to fly around and do the combat as well as she did, I'm not saying she was like T'Challa, Killmonger, Okoye level, or like Nakia or something, but I don't think she quite I think they kind of made her a little too badass in that regard, where she's never really had combat experience and never been out in the field fighting villains or doing anything like this. She's 19 and never had anything go down like this before. So I did think that was a little bit far-fetched, but overall, I definitely enjoyed her performance. I like the character of Riri Williams, and I can't wait to see Riri do more. And just looking at a picture here on Google Images, which would be a cool-ass little like team up if they ever do it with America Chavez and Riri Williams. It'd be cool to see those two team up as two younger heroes right now. And you gotta believe that Young Avengers thing's coming. We just have so many characters that are directly from those comics, and the way they're setting it up, they gotta be it. you know that Young Avengers thing's got to be coming down the road. But anyways, moving on here, getting into my boy M'Baku, played by the great Winston Duke. I do think he was a little bit wasted in this film and definitely could have played a little bit of a more important role in this as he did in the first film. Huge disappointment or huge negative with the film, but definitely a negative for myself as a huge fan of that character. And also getting into one of my other few negatives of the movie with Everett Ross's character. I don't really love what they did with his role in this film all the way through. I do like him like feeding the information to the Wakandans and kind of tying in that sense, and him like, yo, I owe Shuri my life and I'm gonna help you guys out, and I know Wakandans are good people, and you motherfuckers in the government here in the US aren't getting it. These are good people and they're not behind all this stuff. There's someone else at play here and y'all don't fucking understand it. You know what I mean? And I loved that part of it, but I just think some of the Allegra Fontaine stuff and some of the dynamic of that, I thought just kind of took away from the main momentum of the film and kind of felt a little foreign to it at times. And I thought they could have just got to the scene where she's like, I had you bugged this whole time. Here's the handcuffs. You're under arrest, dude. I think they could have got to that and just had that moment and had him just feeding the information to the Wakandans, and then kind of just some kind of amalgamation of kind of what they did. I think just could have been executed slightly differently and could have kind of been a little bit shorter, gotten to the point, and still had the impact that they wanted for it in this film. So overall, didn't hate his character or anything like that, but I thought that they could have utilized him a little bit better as they did in the first movie. But hey, you can't necessarily nail everything every single time. But yeah, and then some other elements I wanted to highlight for this film, man, before we wrap this up. I loved the direction and the overall way that Ryan Coogler put this film together, man. This is why this guy is one of the top tier directors for me personally. I absolutely love his work. I loved every film from Fruitvale Station to Creed to Black Panther to this, and I'm just uber excited to see what he has in store for the future other than Black Panther 3, because this guy is one of the next GOATs and one of the next great directors of our time, and I think he's going to go down as one of those legendary filmmakers if he continues on this path, man, because there's no way, if he does, that he won't. And another element of this film I wanted to highlight and give some love to is Ludwig Gorrison'S score in this film is fucking mwah, chef's kiss, man. The way that he blends the Latin music element of the Talakians with the Wakandan African kind of vibe that he had in the first score and melded them together perfectly here, while also bringing out some of the more somber, emotional sides of the film, being that dedication to Chadwick Boseman, aka T'Challa, as a character and as an actor, and the overall legacy of the Black Panther character was so well done. Like when you got those emotional, somber moments, the music definitely hit and swelled and did what it needed to do. But for the epic action, for the epic moments, I love the Dora Milaje, I love the way that he used that, but repurposed it and it did some new stuff. And added some new flavors into the score in and of itself, and didn't rely on doing all the same stuff from the previous film, because as iconic as the music has kind of become even in these short few years, he definitely could have relied on that and kind of rested his laurels on that, and I'm so glad he didn't, because it made such a much more interesting and impactful score that fit this film in particular, but still fits in with his previous work of the last movie. So I absolutely loved all of that and thought that was so well done. And the overall action and the action sequences that are in this film are fucking awesome, dude. It's not top-notch John Wick level, like, awesomeness or anything like that, but it is really good stuff. There is some inventive ways that he does the effects and some of the transitions with the fight and everything. And really getting to see Namor in action, the way he was flying around and moving around, was fucking badass. And I love the way that Shuri had a little bit more of an animalistic, kind of feline, kind of like vibe to her as being Black Panther in the suit, the way she would climb up the walls on all fours and do all this crazy stuff. T'Challa did that too, but I love the way that Shuri kind of has a different way of fighting that kind of fits her vibe, and I love the way that she uses her intelligence and her smarts to outwit her opponents. It doesn't necessarily win purely on just combat or sheer skill, because that wouldn't necessarily make sense for her character, not being someone that was in a lot of combat or a lot of experience in that arena. So that really played well for the film in itself, and I love the way that they worked in the introduction of Killmonger in the ancestral realm. I thought that was really fucking cool too. And the way that they worked that all in there and getting that little short, quick Michael B. Jordan cameo. And you know my boy Ryan Coogler had to get his muse up in this thing one way or another. And it's almost like he's like a good luck charm to him as well. So I love how he's always had Michael B. Jordan in literally all of his films, Creed being the obvious one, and then Black Panther 1 and Fruitvale Station as well. So great to see the introduction of Killmonger here, feeding into the vengeance part of the storyline of Shuri. Really great stuff, man. And Let me see. So getting into some of those big moments other than the mutant name drop. So the introduction of T'Challa's son, I am very curious to see if that's going to be a little more controversial or the way that some fans are going to take that. I thought it was a beautiful way to kind of have something great to look forward to in the future, something hopeful, a way to carry on T'Challa's legacy in a sense of not recasting the role, but giving the role on to someone else down the line. And since the MCU has time jumps, since we know they're going to keep this thing rolling as long as they can, it is going to be kind of interesting to see if his son will grow up over time and take on the mantle from Shuri or whoever has it at the time. It's going to be interesting to see. Are we going to get a Black Panther 4 with T'Challa's Jr. being the lead? We're going to get, let's say we get Black Panther 3 in 2025, 2026, right? So by like 2029, 2030, are we going to get a Black Panther 4 with this kid being the lead character and maybe not even the same actor? Who knows? It's going to be interesting to see where it goes. But like I said and mentioned earlier, I love the way that Nakia revealed this information to Shuri at the end when she's about to do the ceremony to move on from the grief of Queen Ramonda and go out of the grief phase, but into the moving forward phase of things and acceptance of what's happened and moving on from the denial and the grief and the anger and all those things that come a part of the 5 stages of grief. So I love the way that plays in and the way that Ramonda had met him and T'Challa obviously had met him and knew him and had a relationship with him somewhat before he passed on. I thought was such a beautiful way to tie up the T'Challa storyline and his legacy and everything, and tie up what's going on with Nakia and what she's been up to. And a big reason of why she left was to get her son. And T'Challa wanted his son away from all the throne and the pressures of all that political stuff. So really love that, and I love the way they tied everything up. And I gotta say, man, just kind of wrapping this up here, great sequel. It's such a fucking awesome movie, man. It was so well worth the wait. And for all my fellow Marvel MCU fans, this is a must watch. It is definitely up there in the overall MCU movies, man. It is definitely in that top 15, top 10, no problem. Easily, for me at least. And when it comes to Phase 4, this is far and away one of the best projects they have done in Phase 4, if not the best. It's phenomenal stuff, man. Really, like No Way Home and Loki for me really give it a run for its money. But goddamn, this was such a great movie, such a well-told story, such a poignant, almost said tradition, but a great tribute to Chadwick Boseman and his legacy and T'Challa, the character, and what Black Panther means to all of us fans out there around the world. No matter what color, no matter what culture you come from, we can all appreciate our boy T'Challa. So really love this movie, man. And I gotta say, overall, after letting the hype settle down just a little bit and looking at a few of my negatives and looking at the overall execution of this film, I'm gonna go with a strong 8.75 out of 10. I absolutely did love this movie, though. Don't let that score fool you or anything like that. That's still a high score. I love this movie. One of my favorite movies this year. It's definitely gonna be in that top 10 conversation, no doubt. And make sure y'all stick around by clicking that subscribe button down below, guys. We got a ton of or not a ton, but we do got quite a few more MCU pieces of content that are going to come, because you got the Guardians holiday special coming out in about 2 weeks. So we're definitely going to be covering that. And we got a big Phase 4 tier ranking for all the movies and TV shows. We're going to be doing that sometime in early December, right before the holiday season, or right in the middle of holiday season, but not too close to Christmas per se, but somewhere in the middle there. We're going to be dropping a big Phase 4 tier ranking for the MCU, all the shows, all the TV specials, all the movies. We're going to be talking about it all here on the channel, so make sure you subscribe and you don't miss any of that. And we're going to have this spoiler review for Wakanda Forever, of course. Be on the lookout for all the other great stuff we got coming this month, guys. We got the Andor recaps coming every single week. Make sure you don't miss that. But until we see y'all next time, man, make sure you stay tuned. You don't sleep. Much love to each one of you, and much love to everybody watching. And until we see you again,
Wakanda Forever! Wakanda Forever!